I am opposed to changing our naming school facilities policy. While I do certainly appreciate the intent behind this proposal to increase the diversity in the pool of possible names, I believe that naming future school buildings after living people isn't a best practice. There are a couple of reasons why I believe this. The first is that it can be really difficult to assess the legacy of someone while they're still alive. Second, naming a school after a living person can create a sense of maybe even unintended pressure or expectation on that individual, and it can potentially be unfair to that person. It can also create the false impression that the school is somehow affiliated with that living person or with that person's personal beliefs or opinions, and of course that person still being living and still having personal beliefs and opinions. And third, naming schools after living people can lead to controversy. And of course, naming any school building after a person can lead to controversy, but I just feel like this is exacerbated when that person is still living. And it can create divisiveness within a community. So for these reasons, I believe that it's best to avoid changing the policy to name schools after living people. Personally, I would recommend that we consider naming future school buildings after natural or geographical features or after broad concepts and ideas. Many surrounding school divisions do this already. Winding Creek Elementary and Rocky Run in Stafford are examples. River Bend, Nye River in Spotsylvania, Freedom Middle in Spotsylvania, all examples of schools that have been named relatively recently and not after people. So that's just my reasoning for opposing this change.
I understand where you're coming from on that. In terms of this particular policy change that we're talking about, right now we have a policy in place that says that it can't be a living person and also that you have to be deceased for 10 years. One of the issues that I have with that is just sort of the arbitrary nature of that. Like, we've just defined a line out there where you have to have crossed some sort of threshold for your name to be included in the list of possibilities for naming. I do trust that this school board would do its due diligence and not name any future facility after someone that we didn't do copious research on. One of the reasons why I brought this particular policy change up was that currently we have 4 schools named after 5 men. And I'm not trying to get some sort of, altruistic brownie points for saying that perhaps we should have our next school be named after a woman, but that is a striking imbalance that I think that we need to correct.
People are living longer nowadays, and I can think of hundreds of people that I would be very proud to name a school after, based on the impact of what they've done to this world. So for us to think about changing names outside of people when we already have schools named after people who really I may not even have any respect for, but out of professionalism, we tend to behave and be on board with the current names that we have. And to change that at this juncture without speaking to changing all names, I think is a disservice. So I am very opinionated, and I like what you said, Mr. Rowe, about a female. I never thought of it that way, but yes, I think that we should change the policy because putting a restrictive that you have to be deceased when in fact you could have come up with the cure for cancer. And I would be very proud to have a school named after somebody who did that. So I'm leaning towards staying with the change.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put the change out there is because I feel like the current policy restricts us from considering a multitude of accomplished women of the 20th century that we could potentially name a school after.
I just want to clarify something you said. Were you saying that we should consider renaming all of the schools?
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
I
not
heard
at
you
this
say
time,
that.
but if we were changing the policy and to start naming the schools after geographics or not people, then it's odd to have all the schools named after people and then one not. So if we're going to, I think that should require a different policy change if that's what we were going to do.
I just have a process kind of question. If we approve this change, there will be like a committee of people who are looking at this. So all this is doing is allowing for people who have not been, who may be living, or who may not have been deceased for 10 years to be in that pool.
Exactly.
But this committee would still, and the committee will have school members and parents or community members, yes?
So the
Is that what we're
committee,
looking at?
committee will still make the recommendation, but it will ultimately be up to this board to make the determination. And they can choose to go with the committee recommendation or not.
Gotcha.
It's opening up the aperture. So
Yeah.
just supporting this policy does not necessarily mean you're supporting, well, yeah, or that you're supporting opening it up, that you would support a name of a living person.
Right. It
It's
just allows.
eliminating.
Right, it's just allowing, right,
It's eliminating the line, no school or school facility will be named for a living individual. Schools
Right.
and school facilities may be named for individuals who have been deceased for at least 10 years.
right. So it's just allowing the possibility.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Pomeroy?
No.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Kay?
Yes.
Ms. Boyd?
Yes. The motion carries.